Hello folks, where we are walking, I'm beginning to ponder to myself. I see a little creek bed. It's of course very dry, but would this land be suitable for farming? The answer is probably no. In fact, one could come to the conclusion that these are some bad lands. Get it? Because these are the badlands. Yeah, that was probably the worst pun I've made all trip. But anyway, welcome to the Badlands of eastern Montana. Here in the northern Great Plains, the landscape is dominated by rolling prairie. Not entirely the flattest part of the prairie, but relatively flatter than a lot of the other parts of the West where it's dominated by mountains. But right here, where we are in Makoshika State Park, you can see that prairies aren't really the most dominating feature of the natural geography here. This is an ancient place covered by very rocky terrain filled with valleys as we're walking through, creek beds, buttes, and other rock formations. It's a very interesting place, and I think in all of the West, this may be one of the most underrated hidden gems that there is to offer. Now, as much as this place now is dry, desolate, wasteland, ask if you will, it used to not always be like that. This place used to be teeming with wildlife. And how do we know this? Well, Makoshika State Park is known for its abundance of fossils, of extinct species, millions of years old, that no longer exist today. And so, the remains of these once living, thriving creatures are now permanently embedded, so we hope, in the rock and earth of this area. Now that's not to say there's no life here in this state park entirely. As you can see, there's plants, trees, vegetation, and there's even more of these small little pests. Bugs jumping everywhere, little jumpy bugs, grasshoppers. There's flies all around. Right before starting this video, I got invaded by a swarm of them. I don't know why. Maybe they like the area here at Makoshika, but yeah, just be careful. Don't get invaded by a bunch of flies here. Well, we've made it to one of the summits, a relative summit of this whole greater structure. I thought this trail would lead to some fossils, but I got lost along the way. The paths aren't very clearly marked, which caused me a lot of trouble, scraped my knees a little bit on the precarious terrain, very fragile. Be very, very careful if you go to Makoshika and you want to go on these rugged trails, because these rocks aren't very sturdy. The top layer, no. Yeah, you gotta be careful here. But anyway, this is the great view that you'll see. Now, we passed this a while ago, and I just nonchalantly thought, okay, this is a way to the fossils, but something tells me, especially from that sign, we might be standing right in front of them. Now, I am no archaeologist. I don't know what a fossil looks like in its natural, unexcavated habitat. So we can take a few guesses here. I mean, we see that stone right in front of us with the few indentations. Could that be a fossil? Or perhaps that long horizontal stone. Could that be a fossil? I really don't know. So I would love and appreciate some help on figuring this out. Now, just for your own reference, these are supposed to be dinosaur fossils. We're right nearby a place called hadrosaur junction. And I don't know what a hadrosaur is, but the suffix "saur" probably indicates that it's a dinosaur. So, are we looking at ancient dinosaur artifacts? Or just a bunch of rocks? Oh, hadrosaur junction, you confuse me so. I'm trying to find your fossils, but I have no idea where to go. Anyway, after that little rhyme I had, I think it's time we leave. For as much time as we're spending here in this part of the park, we're not even at the highlights of it. So there's plenty more in Makoshika State Park to visit and discover. Let's do that. Check this all out. This is such an incredible sight. Looks like a canyon of some sort. You could compare it, although not as grand, to the Grand Canyon. Different color, different types of sediments and rock formations, different ways of going through the geologic time scale. As these rocks formed around 80 million years ago, the Earth looked dramatically different. And so did Makoshika State Park, or what the territory of this state park looked like. It's almost like we're on a different planet or something. It's interesting how some of these formations, you'll see, look noticeably strange. Let's get closer up so I can explain a little of that. So you can see this color palette of different types of sediments ingrained in these rocks. You have the yellowish, brownish hue, which means there's iron around here. And then there's also the black, which is supposedly the coal that's here. And that coal means that from the organic material from which it formed, that meant that there was once life here. This was once a lush, wet area, but that was millions of years ago. Now, it's quite a different story. It's dry and barren, but the interesting thing was the rock formations that have been at work forming around this area have a weird shape. There are these cap rocks. We are in the cap rock area, where you can see these mushroom-like formations in the distance and up close. Very interesting how these rocks have formed to create such a unique landscape here in Montana. Seems like we found ourselves a natural bridge. Very fun whenever you go in the country. There are plenty of natural bridges, but they're not so common in this country. I mean, relative to other countries, they may be. This country is full of diverse biomes and ecosystems, and with that, you're going to find strange features of geology. But not every day you're going to see this type of formation. So when you do, when you're traveling around the country, and you find a natural bridge, like the natural bridge we find here in Makoshika State Park, it's nice to just take a glance, take a view, enjoy the scenic area. What an impressive gorge. If you remember back Palo Duro Canyon all the way down in Texas, I talked about this idea that the West in America has so much rich, unspoiled beauty in the nature surrounding its state and its territory that, aside from national parks that they could designate, sometimes they could just say, hey, we got enough space, we got enough beauty, let's give this state park status, even though in the East they'd be clamoring to have such beauty within their borders, to call that their state's flagship national park. But no, Makoshika is just a state park. Believe it or not, The people long ago who ran this park tried to go to the National Park Service and say, hey, there's a lot of this beautiful area that deserves national park status. And personally, I agree. This should be a national park. I mean, this is the type of stuff you would see in national parks. But, unfortunately, the National Park Service, at least the regional bureau that handles these matters and applications for the mountain region, I guess the regional bureau, they pulled a Randy Jackson. They said, sorry, but it's a no for me, dog. And so, ever since, Makoshika State Park has remained Makoshika State Park. At the end of the road lies the Twin Sisters. As you spend your day here in Makoshika State Park, you're going to go along a general path, at first paved, then not so paved, and once again, kind of precarious. I wish that the roads and trails here were given a little bit more respect, but that's alright. At the end of your visit, you will find whether you avoid certain attractions or go through every single one, the Twin Sisters. And I just find it so perplexing. It still boggles my mind how natural forces and natural forces alone can create such a delicately elaborate display of mountains, valleys, peaks, buttes, and pillars, and all these weird rock formations. And this is quite a far distance from the southwest. Even though these are similarly formed structures, we're here in the northern Great Plains. This is not the southwest desert country that we've been through. No, this is eastern Montana. I'll just say it one more time. Makoshika State Park is probably what I would consider the West's best kept secret. Not many people know about what lies here in eastern Montana, but we here on the Coverage Project have dared to venture into this area and see for ourselves what this region has to offer. And I'm very delighted that we spent a day here at Makoshika State Park, because aside from that, people go to Montana. It's a pretty well-toured state, not as much as, Arizona, but people visit here. But people only visit the mountainous western part, Glacier National Park, Bozeman, Missoula, all those places right at the foot of these beautiful Rocky Mountains, which we've seen. Eastern Montana, not so much, which is a sad case, because all the regions of the U.S. deserve a little bit of attention, whether it be economic attention and generosity or touristic attention. I think each part of the country holds a special charm that's unique from one another. And eastern Montana, well, you've outdone yourself here. Look at this. How is this not a national park? I do not understand. Well, Montana has one, Glacier National Park, but that's it. It's like the 4th or 5th largest state in the country, yet only one national park. People of Montana, you know that your state is a treasure trove. It is a treasure chest full of things to do, places to see, areas that will give you such amusement and enjoyment. Why not add a second national park to the list with Makoshika? I mean, it doesn't hurt to try again. Times have changed. The National Park Service is really adding everything these days, so why not add Makoshika State Park as a national park? So imagine that. Makoshika National Park, our 64th national park in the country. I mean, for such beauty, it's worth it to try another time, I guess. But yeah, as much as it would be fun to travel to western Montana, it's a bit tricky with the route I'm taking. I would have to detour a lot. We're already going to so many places here in the frontier of America that, well, maybe it's better that we visit the rather untouched places or lesser beaten path places in Montana. So with that, I would like to say goodbye to you all. What a great time in Montana we've had, but we still got a few more states to visit here on our Frontier Americana tour. Yeah, this is the longest tour I will probably ever do. 2.5 months is really stretching it. And I think you really got to be on the road for at least 2.5 months to truly understand the toll it takes on one individual. But hey, we're making progress. We are doing wonders here in the West. So with that, goodbye everyone from Makoshika State Park here in Custer Country, southeastern Montana. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location.